Thanks so much for the introduction, Stephanie. Hi, everyone. We're really glad you guys were able to make it to our webinar today, and we hope you can take something away from our experiences using ExamSoft as the main assessment platform for our station-based capstone exams. As Stephanie mentioned, my name is Jayzona Alberto, and I'm one of the academic managers at the College of Dental Medicine at Western University of Health Sciences, which is located in Pomona, California.
Hi, my name is Jorge Godinez, and I'm the other academic manager here at CDM.
So just some of our learning outcomes for today's webinar. We're going to discuss the various ExamSoft features that we at our college utilize for our station-based assessments, what the benefits of using ExamSoft for these exams are, and how we set up the logistics for these very complicated exams. We'll also briefly talk about how we enhanced our faculty engagement in student learning assessment by having our faculty members tag each of the questions and rubrics in the station-based exams with pre-identified categories so that our Office of Academic Affairs can determine gaps in student learning in regards to specific skills or concepts. And then lastly, we'll go over our effective use of learning analytics and the reporting processes that were basically non-existent when we were administering these station-based assessments on paper. So this is a picture of our campus, and I just kind of wanted to talk a little bit background and give you some context before we delve into how we evolved our station-based capstone exams. So Western UCDM was founded in 2009, and we started using ExamSoft in 2012. Each cohort has approximately 70 students, and we use written assessments primarily in the first 2 years of the program, in which students use SofTest or SofTest-M, which is an iPad application, to take their multiple choice, fill in the blank, or essay exam. And then in the last 2 years of the program, the students spend a majority of their time performing dental procedures in the clinic, where they are assessed on their skills through performance-based assessments like rubrics by our faculty members who are using ExamSoft. And then at the end of each academic year, our students are assessed on their progress within the curriculum through station-based exams. You might be wondering what we consider a station-based capstone exam. So Western UCDM uses these station-based capstone exams basically to assess students' knowledge across clinical disciplines and for various dental procedures. These may take place in the form of a simulated clinical exam, or what we call a SKI, at the end of each academic year in our Essentials of Clinical Dentistry course. Additionally, the exam is typically cumulative and tests the students' comprehension of concepts, procedures, or other things that are built over the years. And then, as I mentioned, it is a multidiscipline exam. So this basically means that the students can be tested on concepts and skills from various disciplines, like periodontics, endodontics, operative dentistry, or occlusion, all within one exam. Also, our faculty members develop questions based on the content delivered to the students, both during didactic lectures as well as our sessions in our simulation clinic. So these assessments sometimes test the students' hand skills related to dental procedures. And then finally, the students are required to pass the exam in order to begin treating patients in the clinic.
So we prepared this short video that will give you an idea of our planning process for station-based exams before the implementation of ExamSoft.
Okay, so for the 2016 OSCE station exam, we probably need like 8 faculty, maybe 4 staff. We want to start here with the students, and the blue arrows indicate like where we need to tape on the ground. That's their route. And so at the entrance, we'll have a staff member. We'll probably need staff members in the middle, one at the exit. Someone needs to time it. Someone also needs to do the buzzer. And then we need 1 faculty per 4 operatories, like also. So we need to make sure that we tape all of them, and someone's handing out these like packets to each of the students who come in. What do you think?
I'm thinking that's going to work, but I see here you have 15 rows of tape. I'm thinking that you're going to need at least 20.
Well, last year we used like only 14. I really don't want to go over on resources. 20 is a lot of rolls of tape.
I mean, that tape is just so crucial. You know, we have all these blue arrows. We just have to make sure we have enough tape.
So as you can imagine, our tape usage has definitely dropped considerably since we started using ExamSoft. So in this video, we wanted to give you an idea of how we dealt with the processing of the large paper packets after the exam was done. I'm sure many of you have felt the same way at some point. So these two scenarios really help to illustrate why we felt we really needed it to make a change. So in order to get to where we are today, it took us a few steps to get to this fully electronic format. The Essentials of Clinical Dentistry Simulated Clinical Exam, which is a station-based capstone exam that must be passed at the end of the second year in order for students to advance into the dental clinic for their third year. Previously, students wrote all of their answers in paper packets that were several pages long. Although the assessment was well designed and was a true representation of our students' clinical skills, the logistics behind a paper exam meant many hours of faculty grading and a slow turnaround time. Other than knowing whether or not the students passed, there was little else we could do with the performance data. So our orthodontics objective simulated clinical exam was the first exam of its kind to be held partially in ExamSoft. Students submitted their answers using their own laptops in ExamSoft and viewed the medical cases on iPads. They also rotated through stations where they viewed physical models for each case. At this point in our process, we had not fully categorized all of our questions, so ExamSoft was used only as a replacement to paper. Scores were pulled easily and turnaround time was minimized, but we did little else with the assessment data. We have now arrived at a point where all of our station-based capstone exams are held in ExamSoft. Students are no longer required to physically rotate through stations, and all questions have been categorized, allowing us to pull all of ExamSoft's available exam reports.
One challenge we faced while evolving our process was to get faculty buy-in. We had to lay out a lot of the benefits of using ExamSoft as a means of administering these types of assessments to our students. So some of the advantages we discussed included the quick input of exam questions into our in-house developed SharePoint form, a form that our faculty are already familiar with and comfortable using. And then another benefit is the ability to develop multiple versions of one exam and mixing and reusing the exams in future courses or in years to come. The virtual nature of the exam also allows for consistency across all questions. This improves exam validity as well. For example, in previous years, students would handle models of the mouth or teeth during the station-based exams. If they dropped them on the floor or the models chipped or broke, the next student using the model may be affected by this. We also reduce the use of exam materials like these models. Furthermore, there is no longer a need to purchase or order models for every station. Models cost a lot of money and the lab spent a lot of time making them, so we would have to wait for them to arrive. A significant benefit of using ExamSoft is its ability to secure assessments, which is key to exam integrity and ensuring that the students are finished within the time frame allotted for each exam. And yet another pro to using ExamSoft is our grading process was streamlined. There was only one portal for the faculty to grade in. The turnaround time for grading lessened significantly because of this. In previous years, it took up to 2 months for faculty members to return scores for these high-stake assessments, and now it only takes a matter of minutes. Finally, reports such as item analysis or detailed grader reports allow faculty and staff to review student progress and also gives us the ability to release rubrics and scores quicker than ever before. Some bonus benefits of this virtual exam included an increased efficiency of clinical and academic affairs staff time because we no longer needed multiple registered dental assistants and academic affairs staff to proctor or assist during the 4-hour exam. So that way they can work on other tasks or projects. Another obvious advantage is the elimination of paper usage. As shown in the video, with previous exams, we would use up to 30 pages of paper per student. That's a lot of trees. And then we were also able to decrease the time spent creating and managing exams because there's no need to print the exam version, staple each side of the packet, hand out the packets, collect them, etc. And then finally, having a bring your own device environment enabled our students to bring their own laptops and their own tablets. When they need to bring a mouse or headphones, we let them know. And then there's just no need to set up multiple computer stations with Axiom, which is our dental health record software, or any other type of software.
Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about the logistics behind the planning of a station-based capstone exam in the electronic format. So fully mapping out the requirements for each station-based capstone exam requires collaboration between academic affairs staff and faculty. Typically, this process is conducted via email and face-to-face meetings. Past collaborations have yielded consideration of the factors that you see here. Since many of our exams require collaboration amongst the faculty members submitting questions, we needed to find an electronic solution that would allow them to submit their questions concurrently and allow for an easy review process. So as Jayzona mentioned, we employed the use of a form housed on Microsoft SharePoint, which we already are using to construct our didactic exams in ExamSoft. So this form allows us to gather all the questions and question attachments in one location. It also creates a file that is formatted right into the ExamSoft upload template, which facilitates an easy importing process with all categories included in the upload. So compared to our previous paper-based exam, which required the closure of our clinic for the day, the new exam can be proctored like any of our others, meaning we only need a single classroom. In the long run, this small change does have a financial impact, since instead of pausing operations to house the exam, the clinic can keep running and seeing patients. Students are also instructed to bring the necessary computer accessories to help facilitate their exam taking experience. A mouse is recommended to assist in navigation, while headphones might be required if an exam contains attachment with an audio. So students are also asked to keep their computers up to date at all times. This includes having the latest ExamSoft version and the latest Adobe Reader version. So proctors. The proctor needs for our previous paper exam included several academic and clinical staff as well as faculty. This new electronic process requires only one proctor from academic affairs like any of our other didactic exams. So in order to simulate a true station-based exam, we disable backward navigation so that students are unable to go back to previous questions. Although we cannot currently control the time spent on each question or station, in the future we hope a feature is implemented that allows us to control the time a student spends on each question. Given our simplified process for gathering and categorizing questions, removing the need for faculty to spend time putting the exam together, we are also easily able to generate multiple versions of each exam. So this also contributes to exam security by making it simple to change the exam content from year to year or when makeups are needed. The use of SofTest also provides a timed and secure assessment environment. Staff do not have to track the time each student spends at each station, and students do not have the possibility of interaction during the exam, minimizing the potential for cheating.
So now that we've talked your ears off about how we as staff members collaborated with our faculty to get the ball rolling on evolving our exams from paper to electronic administration, we're going to go over ExamSoft's best features and our college's optimal usage of those features in our station-based assessment. One of the most basic features we use is a multiple choice question. Our faculty members use a mix of the various options seen on the screen. Sometimes they attach an image or a PDF to the question, or they add images for each answer choice. We heavily use the select all that apply option as well. Here's an example of one of the inline answer choice images. And so basically you could see from the image that when the students are looking at the question, they're supposed to select the appropriate answer choice.
Question type, has been used in our third-year station-based simulated clinical exam. This particular question contains a PDF which includes a patient's radiograph and an image of their condition. The attachment feature eliminates the need for faculty members to have physical radiographs displayed, which was a logistical challenge since we are limited by the number of secure computers available to display the images. So essays are open-ended question types that challenges our students' knowledge in a topic. Although the faculty member must still read through each response for grading, they can provide feedback that is easily released to the student via the ExamSoft portal. The student can utilize this feedback to further improve on their clinical skills. This question type can also be used in conjunction with rubric grading. So this video shows how the students interact with essay questions on our exams. The student is able to view the patient documentation and type their answer in below. So here you can see that same question from the faculty perspective. The faculty member reviews the student's answer, they grade using a rubric, and then they can provide feedback.
Faculty members use videos to demonstrate a skill or procedure and have students respond to the question based on that video. The answers can be in the form of multiple choice questions or multiple choice, true, false, or essays. For these types of questions, we notify the students in advance to bring headphones if the videos have sound. A couple examples of these videos are for infection control and communication. Rubric grading can be intertwined into the setup of a station-based assessment. The performance-based assessment can act as a standalone section of the exam or be incorporated into it, and students would move into this portion of the exam. The faculty member would be present at the station and would score the student's skills on the rubric. An example of this rubric is shown on the screen. This is our oral diagnosis module rubric. The faculty member assesses a student based on whether or not he or she performs a task outlined in each of the dimensions of the rubric. For example, in this assessment, the student may need to remember to move the patient's tongue from side to side to look for any cysts or lesions. So the grader will score the student based on whether or not the student did this.
So this might be the feature we are actually most excited about. So we had a faculty member who was generating 3D PDFs of our dental models. During one of our collaborative meetings, the idea came about to use one of these PDFs within an assessment. Although we are able to use the PDF on Windows computers, we have had issues with the PDF working for Mac. We hope this is something ExamSoft provides support for, since it is much desired from our faculty and would completely remove the need to purchase pricey physical models. So here in this example, you see the possibilities this feature can provide. Students are able to manipulate the model and even take measurements if needed to answer the question. So as you have seen, yes, using ExamSoft can definitely simplify your overall station-based exam process. But as we know, the real goal of most educators is to generate meaningful data that will further facilitate student learning, which is what ExamSoft provides. As we mentioned earlier, our turnaround time for releasing grades to students has improved dramatically, while at the same time we now have robust assessment reporting. Many of you are probably most familiar with the item analysis report. This report provides us with detailed performance data for each question, which is then used by faculty to strengthen the content of their questions and determine the areas that may need to be strengthened in the curriculum. The category report is a quick overview of student performance in each category on our particular assessment. The summary report gives a quick overview of student performance on an exam, displaying lower to higher tier performers and giving overall exam statistics. Finally, the exam taker results report, while the most simple, is actually very useful in that it gives us automatically generated spreadsheets of student scores that we can easily import into our learning management system. It also helps to eliminate any scoring errors.
Longitudinal analysis reports help us look at student performance over a longer period of time rather than just one exam. We generate reports on specific categories, especially the clinical disciplines that the exam is testing. Previously, we were unable to pull robust reports that compare cohorts, but with ExamSoft, we are able to view the progress of a cohort and compare it with the results from the previous year's cohort for that exact same assessment. The longitudinal analysis report also allows us to pinpoint very specific areas of weakness. For example, a student may perform poorly in operative dentistry, where they may need more attention in this area. Finally, we can focus our remediation efforts on action plans or advanced instruction to address the student's areas of weakness. So here's an example of a graph that we pulled from ExamSoft that displays one of our cohorts' performance in the various clinical disciplines over a year. And so as you can see, this particular cohort is struggling in prosthodontics, and so the prosthodontic faculty member can kind of give some more tailored guidance or help with that specific cohort in that area. And then we can also see that the students perform pretty well in orthodontics, and so maybe they might not need as much help. So these reports are very, very useful for our faculty, especially our specialists, as well as administration, who likes to see how well students are progressing throughout the curriculum as a whole cohort. We also release the students' individual reports for longitudinal analysis via ExamSoft. So the students can see in their own portal, ExamSoft portal, how well they're performing in each of the learning outcomes. So for example, this student is performing pretty well in our CDM competency critical thinking. And so she's performing at a 94%, and she can compare that to her cohort's average of 85%. And she's able to see how many assessments were tagged with critical thinking, how many questions overall were tagged with critical thinking. She's also able to see like how well she's doing in soft skills. So one of our competencies is communication, one of our learning outcomes. And she can see that she's performing at a 95% and doing relatively well compared to her cohort at 83%. And so this is something in the students' view of their ExamSoft portal that they can monitor and track over time. And then here's another view of a student who isn't doing as well, and similar to the previous student, he can see that his average is at 70%, and that the peer average is at 83%. So he's performing below his cohort's average. And then in critical thinking for the institutional learning outcome, he can see that he's performing at a red, which is 64%, and his peers are performing at 81%. And the nice thing about the ExamSoft portal view for the students is that it indicates on the right-hand side if this particular category is an area of improvement. So that's something that the students can pinpoint and look at and then focus on in future for when they're studying or when they're learning in class.
I know many of you might be thinking, how could I ever get this started at my institution? Believe us, we know how difficult it could be to make these type of changes, but we put together a quick start guide that we hope will be useful. First, we recommend that you make a decision as to which assessments you would like to convert to the electronic format. Then you should decide who the key stakeholders are. Remember to leverage the use of communication and collaboration to help facilitate innovative ideas. More than likely, you will need to explain why you want to make this change. Try to focus in on those benefits related to student learning outcomes, measuring knowledge and skills, and decreasing planning time. Once you have the go-ahead to make the change, determine which resources you will need to launch your revamped exam. You may want to consider staff time, electronic resources, and any necessary technology. Also, take inventory of all the ExamSoft features you would like to incorporate. Just a quick tip, you can minimize most or any issues by creating mock exams before deploying the exam to your students. Finally, be sure to set a sustainable timeline for launching the assessment. You want to make sure you're successful, and you want to make sure you set a timeline you can actually match. All right, so here's our contact information. If you had any questions on any of our presentation, you can feel free to reach out to us. We're more than glad to answer any questions. And then if you had any questions now, we'll definitely take them as well.
Great. Thank you so much, George and Jayzona. This was wonderful. We are going to go ahead and open the forum up for a Q&A. So if you have questions for the presenters, now is the time to pose them through the questions area of the GoToWebinar control panel, which should be on the right-hand side of your screen. All you need to do is type them in, and we'll read them out and give the presenters an opportunity to respond. We do already have a couple that have come in, guys, so I'm going to go ahead and jump right in, if that's all right.
Yeah.
Perfect. First question is, has your program seen any evidence of growth in student performance since implementing this process?
So actually, it's interesting because we recently had one of our faculty members who teaches the Essentials of Clinical Dentistry course, and she's actually completing her master's degree here at Western, master's in health sciences. And for her thesis, she actually used some of the assessment data we've generated through ExamSoft, and she wanted to find a correlation between the performance data and how the student was actually performing. And so she ran some statistical analysis, and she actually did find a correlation between the data we're generating and how the student is actually performing. So that was actually kind of neat to see that.
Okay, thank you. Next question is, I'd like to hear more about how they set up multiple versions of the exams. Can you guys dive into that a little deeper?
Yeah, sure. So we have a couple of exams that the faculty have multiple versions of, and that's mostly due to students go on externship, and so they have to come back, and so it takes like a couple weeks for them to come back to campus, and they have to take the same assessment that the rest of their cohort already took. And so what we would do in our SharePoint form is we would just set up different exam submission sites for our faculty. And so an example is our third year objective structured clinical exam. So we call it the D3 OSCE. And that one consists of operative dentistry, occlusion, oral maxillofacial pathology, and I think orthodontics. And what the faculty do is each of our specialists input questions for version 1 into one submission site, and then they have a second version for the next group of students, and they input the questions separately into a different submission site. And so typically they use similar questions and change out cases, or they have completely different questions. But a lot of the time our faculty like to pull from an item bank that is in ExamSoft and in our SharePoint page. And so they're able to pull from questions from before too. So that's something that they like to use to incorporate into the different versions of our exams.
Great, thank you. Next question is, what backup do you have for hardware, software failure during the exam?
So our proctors always bring an additional laptop with them to the exam. So we've actually had quite a few students who have experienced technical issues, and most of the time it's because of either their laptop or they didn't download the software. So we really emphasize, there was one exam in particular that comes to mind where maybe 10 students did not download the Adobe software, and because the Adobe Reader software, and because the faculty had PDF attachments, they weren't showing up. And so some students had to use the loaner laptops that we bring to the exam, and we have like about 10 loaner laptops the students can check out from us. We also bring iPads. We have probably 10 to 12 iPads that we bring or that we have in our office, and we bring a couple of them with us just in case there's any malfunctions going on with a student's laptop or a student's software. But we always remind them to update their software, because that's actually what's key. That's what we've noticed is the issue most of the time.
And actually, just to reemphasize as well, as part of the planning process, that's why we really think it's crucial to create the mock exam, or create the exam and maybe just assign it to a course at your end so you can test it. We usually test the exams once we've created them. We test them on a Windows computer, and we also test them on the Mac, just to try to make sure it's compatible and there's no issues before the exam comes. So, and once we actually get to the exam day, most of the issues are caused by students not updating their software. That's what we've seen.
This is actually a little bit of a follow-up question, but I'll go ahead and pose it anyway. iPads or laptops, how are each used in this type of scenario, and is one more successful than the other, have you found?
Well, actually, for some of the skis, or what we call our Capstone and station-based exams, we have attachments that are probably not going to be compatible with iPads. So for those type of exams, we do require the students use their laptops. For exams that have more simple attachments, we could definitely use the iPads for those using SofTest-M. And we also use iPads when we have station-based exams where the faculty is actually grading, because they can grade on the rubric using the iPad while they're at the station. So we've done that as well.
Another thing to remember for your station-based assessments is that if you have a lot of essays, students don't exactly like using the iPads when they're typing their essay answers. So if you have essays in your assessment, then we would recommend going with a laptop, because that's just what we've noticed our students prefer, and it's a lot easier on them
And I think it's nice too here because we do have that flexibility since this is actually the second year that we've required our incoming students to have a compatible laptop, and they're assigned an iPad mini. So we know that each student has an iPad if we chose to go that route as well.
Great. Next question is, how many students are being assessed in your program?
There's 70 students per cohort.
So we have 4 cohorts. That's about 280 to 290 students, around there.
Do you have any examples of challenges that you've been faced based on that amount of students per cohort, or how many are being assessed at one time?
I think one of our biggest challenges, as we talked about, was having like technical issues during or at the beginning of an assessment and throughout. Sometimes, I think for some students' laptops, it might take a longer time to download the exam file, maybe because of the number of video attachments or image attachments or PDF attachments. That's always an issue that we've seen but have been able to control. And I think, trying to think.
I think other than that too, I think that's why it's important to have those kind of minimum requirements for any incoming students, because you want to make sure they're coming in with a machine that isn't going to give them issues that they're ultimately going to have to replace. So having a good set of minimum requirements for laptops and devices ensures that the students won't have those technical issues when the day comes that they take the exam.
And I think another challenge that we faced recently was because students are not physically moving from a station to a station to a station, sometimes like they don't understand the concept of not having backward navigation, or of having backward navigation enabled on a ExamSoft's. And that's basically because, like, if we were doing a physical station-based exam, like, the students know that they can't go backward. They can't go to the previous station. Like, they can maybe answer the question, but they can't, like, go back a question physically. And so when we enable backward navigation, I think students sometimes get flustered not knowing or not realizing that they can't go back. But if you put them into the physical space of a station-based assessment, they can't go back anyway. So I think just making that clear in the beginning is really important when you're administering a virtual station-based assessment. And yeah, I think those are most of the challenges we've encountered. But I think in the long run, it's actually a better process doing it in doing a station-based exam like virtually, like on a SofTest, because we just streamline everything. Like, resources are better. Like, we don't use as much resources as we talked about in our presentation, and then also just collecting the questions and turning around our scores and generating reports. Everything is just a lot simpler compared to when we were organizing these really complicated, complex station-based assessments where we had to like actually lay out physical parameters and close down the clinic, and it just was very complicated previously.
Okay, next question. Are students allowed to download their exams before the assessment date?
Yes, actually we do require the students download the exam before they come to the class. So what we do is we actually tell them that they are to download the exam at least 1 hour prior to the exam start time. So that hour before the exam start time, if they don't download it, we don't allow them to download it. And so we basically make them come to the class, we start the exam, we then let them download it, and we don't give them the extra time. So that way, more than anything, we don't try to be punitive, but we want them to be able to download the exam, make sure they do, because if there are any issues with downloading the exam or with their laptop, we want to know ahead of time, so then we're able to then fix the problem before we get to the class. So that's actually been very helpful.
And since we've implemented that policy, our students have been pretty good about downloading the exam ahead of time or letting us know if they do encounter any technical issues. So that way, like, we're already ready with a laptop or an iPad that they can use during the exam if they were having issues downloading it before that 1 hour.
Great, thank you. We're going to go ahead and wrap things up at this point, everybody. Thank you to George and Jayzona for your presentation. This was really informative. Thank you for everybody who attended today, taking time out of your afternoon. I know that we're all very busy, so we appreciate you being here. Just a couple of notes before we go ahead and close out. This webinar has been recorded, so everybody who registered and attended will receive an email within the next 48 hours that will have both a link to the recording as well as a link to a PDF version of the deck for your use. Also, when you do close out of the webinar, please just be aware that you'll get a pop-up with a brief survey in it. It's only 5 questions long. We would really, truly appreciate everybody taking just a couple of moments to fill that out so that we can continue to provide relevant content at all of these presentations. Again, thank you to our presenters, Jayzona and George, and we'll see you guys next time. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.